Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles. I am C. Hope you are doing well. This week we're going to take a look at the second baseman in our Hall of Fame tracker series. Take a look at who may be on the track, who might be off the track, and see who's worth our hard-earned investment dollars. So for second baseman in the Hall of Fame, there's 20 of them. The highest wins above replacement belongs to Rogers Hornsby with 130. Most hits, 33, 15. Eddie Collins, some of your original members there, or close to original members anyways. Most home runs, Rogers Hornsby, of course, the all-time home run leader. For second baseman, Jeff Kent is not in, and it's unlikely that he gets in, unfortunately. But down the road, we'll see what happens here. 3,000 hit club. Eddie Collins, Nap Lajoie, Craig Biggio, and Rod Carew. So, now, back in the day, we know that the replacement players were not as good as they are today. And so if you're a really, really good player, that fact was accentuated by the replacement level player that you're being measured against in today's statistics being not so good. And so when you look at Nap Lajoie, Eddie Collins, Rogers Hornsby, they were monsters. And so it's not fair to compare the players today against some of those numbers in terms of wins above replacement. And so that's our starting point anyways. And so we're going to exclude them from the conversation. For the most part, if you can see that all 20 second basemen had an average wins above replacement of 70. If you take away Collins, Lajoie, and I already forgot the other one, Hornsby, sorry, then you're closer to 60 wins above replacement to get into the Hall, and that's probably a more reasonable number if you look at some of the more recent inductees, which we will in just a second here. Second basemen tend to peak around 4 and 5 wins around age 25, and they can maintain that up until age 33 or something like that. And so then there's a decline. Most players start to experience a decline around age 35. So when we're looking at this, we'll see if they can't get 60 wins or so before that decline really starts to accelerate. And so players that have been elected by the Baseball Writers Association since 1980, Roberto Alomar, Biggio, Carew, Joe Morgan, and Ryan Sandberg, you can see that they really define the position generationally, at least in the minds of All-Star Game voters. A lot of Gold Gloves, All-Star Games, a couple of MVPs in there. So if you're able to get a number of All-Star Games, if you're able to get something in the line of 2,500, 3,000 hits, and have that Fangraphs WAR around 60 or just a touch above that, then you're on a pretty good track. For comparison purposes, we're not going to compare anybody to Joe Morgan either. He was a beast, and I don't think you'll see another one of those anytime soon. And so we'll remove him from the average line equation there. So Alomar, Biggio, Carew, and Sandberg. And so again, if you can sneak over that 60 wins above replacement, 2,500 hits ish, and I don't think home runs matter as much as All-Star Games and defensive metrics, then you're in pretty good shape here. So coming up on the ballot next year, a couple of very fine players from our generation here. Brandon Phillips with nearly 30 wins above replacement, but over 2,000 hits, 3 All-Star Games, and a slew of Gold Gloves. So he had a few nice years, but probably not the peak you're looking for, not the longevity and high level production that Hall of Fame voters are looking for. So if he hangs around the ballot for a vote or two, that may be a win for him. Chase Utley is a little more interesting. If you look at the wins above replacement, he satisfies that largely with over 60 wins above replacement, but the hits are light. 6 All-Star Games, but what a lot of Hall of Fame voters are starting to look at now are the JAWS score, the Jaffe average weighted system for Hall of Fame voters. What does their peak 7 years look like? And he did have a pretty brilliant peak. He had injuries that kind of slowed him down the back half of his career, so there will be a case to be made. I think he's one of those Hall of Very Good type players, but that's what the Hall is turning into these days, the Hall of Very Good. And so he has a fairly reasonable shot, and it'll be interesting to see how he does on that initial ballot. So if you're looking at just wins above replacement, sure. If you're looking at these other numbers, it doesn't quite measure up to what's gotten in over the past few decades here. So some young players that are on deck, and they're worth monitoring, but there's not much of a track record there to go off on. So there's a number of players here. You've got Schneider and Westberg as well for the Orioles and Blue Jays that are kind of in that 5-win area that they need to average to get on this list. So within a couple of years, you might see some of these guys sneak on here. So we have their age. What is their WAR accumulated to this point? What is the pace? So if you look at the average Hall of Famer at age 22, how much WAR have they accumulated? So 3.81 in terms of 22-year-olds. And if they want to get to that 60 by roughly age 35, what do they have to average on an annual basis? And so if they can start producing in a relatively quick fashion at a decently high level, then those are names that we can take a little bit more seriously. So a couple of names that stand out to me anyways are Nolan Gorman and Zach Geloff. Age 23 in their first taste, they showed some competency with around 3 wins for the season. Average Hall of Famers got a touch more, but if they can start putting up some 4 or 5 win seasons in a hurry here, then they can stay on that track. And if they can do that for a long time, then, well, that's a really, really good track. So Eduardo Julian, kind of in that same spot, just a year older, and so you can see what a difference a year makes. It's usually a half win per year that they'll need to make up for over time. So, anyways, worth noting, worth watching, but we won't dive too deeply into them here. So, a couple players that are maybe falling off the list. Gleyber Torres, 26 years old. He was on this list forever, but you have to be a little bit cautious of guys that come up early and have a good year of production. That buys them some time, but if they have to average something like 5 wins a season and that's not something they've done in their career, then use your shoulder top computer and realize, well, that's probably not a player that we're going to sink a ton of money into or anything like that. Luis Arraez, 26 years old, 10 wins, and the average Hall of Famer at age 26 has closer to 19 wins above replacement, and so he needs to average over 5.5 wins by age 35. And so you can see some other names are even in worse shape here. India, Nico Horner, Ketel Marte, and Marcus Semien, which are actually pretty interesting. If you look at their baseball reference wins above replacement, Semien is closer to 40, and Ketel Marte is closer to 30, and so that puts him on a little bit better standing here. But in terms of getting to that 60 wins, even in baseball reference terms, which favors defense a little bit more, rewards a little bit higher, by age 35, they still need to average over 6 wins on an annual basis. So Marcus Semien has done that the last 4 years, but he didn't really start raking till his age 28 season. So he's been one of the best second basemen in the league over the past 4 or 5 years. But because of his later start, only putting up a win or two per year, starting at up until age 28, that does take him off the path. So I mean, he could maintain this level of production if he's able to do that to age 37 or 38 and grind out a few more years. Then obviously we'll reevaluate. So, but as of now, he remains off the track, no matter how you wanna look at it here. So some awards, some big time awards, that could change the deal here. So that's why we do this on an annual basis. All right, Luis Arraez is kind of an interesting case here. Terrific hitter, kind of an empty batting average type of player, but that can get you into the Hall for sure. So if we compare him to Rod Carew, if you hit a certain milestone, if we hit Rod Carew, who had just over 3,000 hits in his career, that may be Arraez's ticket here. So we'll see how that plays out. But if he's able to keep hitting get a couple hundred hits a year and do that for a really long time, he may force the issue here. So in terms of Rod Carew's hits on an annual basis, Luis Arraez is tracking that fairly well here. So if he can keep that going for a long time, then again he might force voters to eschew a lot of the other metrics and get them in, because I don't know how many more 3,000 hitters we're going to have. They're going to be a little bit more sparse than we've had historically. So all right, let's get into some of the more interesting names here. Just have a couple of them. Ozzie Albies, 26 years old, with 20 Fangraphs WAR, 20 Baseball Reference WAR. Needs to average 4.5 wins on an annual basis to get to that 60 by age 35. 800 hits, 130 home runs. Another pretty nice season this year. He had 4.5 wins above replacement, 110 weighted runs created, so 10% better than the average second baseman hitting. He's got 3 All-Star games and 2 Silver Sluggers. If he's able to keep compiling the All-Star games and adding home runs, hits, things of that nature, he could force the issue in terms of wins above replacement. He's tracking very well with, and this isn't even the average Hall of Famer. Again, remember, this is Sandberg and Carew and Alomar and Biggio. Those are big time names, and he's keeping pace with them. And so, as Ozzie Albies remains one of my favorite players to target, and I think a little bit under the radar these days, but yeah, it's one of the he's in a better position than most here. So Andres Jimenez, monster year last year, over 6 wins above replacement. This year, 3.5 wins, but his defense was terrific. He earned a Platinum Glove, so a couple of Gold Gloves in All-Star game. He's just age 24, so if he can kind of hit the middle of what he did last year and this year in terms of offensively, then that could certainly get him. I'm not going to say back on track, because he's on track, but that will help his case here. So he's got 11 Fangraphs WAR, 14 Baseball Reference WAR. He needs to average 4.37 wins above replacement to get to 60 wins above replacement by age 35, with 112 rate runs created. Again, a lot of this came last year. We were looking for regression from him, but I think this year was a little too much. And so see if he can't correct that last year. But again, with those monster names, he's on pace here. So It's early. He's just 24, but that's part of the game, producing when you're early. And so see if he can't keep it going. And your number one target probably at the second base position, assuming a certain right fielder for the Dodgers doesn't permanently make that change, is Jose Altuve. He's 33 years old, 52 Fangraphs WAR, 46 Baseball Reference WAR. Needs to average just under 4 wins per season to get to that 60 by age 35, which comes up in a couple of years. He's not showing a whole lot of signs of slowing down, so I could see him being productive past that point and really compiling here. He's got over 2,000 hits, which is a big deal. So again, a couple more years, he could hit that. 2,500 hit level over the next 2 or 3 years or something like that. Well, 3 or 4 years maybe. But anyways, that puts him in extremely good shape for the Hall of Fame. And I think all the stuff that happened 7, 8 years ago, it will be largely forgotten by the time it's time to vote on him. So a couple hundred home runs, 116 weighted runs created. He does have an MVP, which is huge. 3 top 5 finishes, 8 All-Star games, 6 Silver Sluggers, and a Gold Glove. So when you're looking at kind of your no doubt Hall of Fame type players that maybe just need to coast in for a few more years, this would be the guy at the second base position. So that's what I got for you. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff, and we'll be back at you with third baseman in the near future. Have a great rest of the day. Bye now.